stupid somewhere else?
Not until 4.
How's it going, guys? It's your boy Van Tall Guy. If you guys are new to the channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for me and let's get started. Today I have the Ford Ranger in the garage, and today I'm changing out the head gasket and the head on this 3.0. Now the reason why I'm doing it is because I'm getting a misfire on cylinder number 5, and I already checked the spark plugs, I already checked the cables and the injector and all that, and I ran a compression test, and cylinder number 5 is giving a reading of 60 psi, which 60 is pretty low for an engine. The manual says that you can't go lower than 100 psi for these cylinders, so I definitely have a compression leak somewhere. Now I did a leak down test where I put oil in the cylinder and I cranked it, and the reading was still 60 psi. So definitely not my piston rings. It can either be the head itself is leaking or I have a head gasket leak. So today we're gonna go ahead and take everything apart, and we're gonna check the head gasket, and just replace it and see if that fixes the misfire. Now this is a big job. If you guys are not comfortable on doing this, bring it to a mechanic. If you guys have seen my other head gasket video, the one I did for the Black XJ, go ahead and check it out. It'll give you an idea of what you're looking at and what you're doing. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm gonna do is drain the coolant and the oil just to get out of the way, and then I'm gonna start disconnecting these sensors and removing the intake stuff. So the hose, the air filter, the air hose, the intake manifold. I need to disconnect the battery, of course, and then disconnect basically everything. So I'm just gonna get started, and I'll let you know when I stumble upon something. Alright guys, quick update. So I went ahead and disconnected all the coolant lines, all the coolant hoses. I disconnected all the sensors. Honestly, this part is the easiest part. Just make sure you know where all the connectors and all the sensors and all the hoses go. Basically do what I do, just record it so you can reference back on your videos, so you have an idea where everything goes. Just keep in mind these 4 bolts here that holds the manifold to the block, I think. Make sure 2 of them are shorter than the other. Just make sure that they go back the correct way. As for the fan down here, I need to get a special tool to remove it. So that's gonna be for tomorrow. So I'm just gonna continue basically disconnecting everything. You have 2 coolant lines here, or 2 air hoses here. You have to disconnect. You have you have this big hose down here. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff we have to disconnect. It's pretty simple. As I recommend, just record it just so you have reference on where you disconnect what, and you should be fine. I managed to get all the bolts loose for the intake manifold. There's 6 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way here in the back we can't see, but it's easy to get to. Now a special socket you're gonna need for this job is gonna be this 8mm deep socket. You're definitely gonna need this for this one right here, for this bolt right here. And also, before you remove all 6 bolts, make sure you take out the 2 bolts for the EGR control valve, I think. Make sure you disconnect that one so you can hang it free. And now the intake should come off. I just need to disconnect these 2 hoses here, and I think, oh, and also this this big wire harness here. I just need to disconnect that. All right, guys, another update. So I went ahead and took out the intake manifold. It was simple. There was just a few connectors, a few hoses I forgot to mention. Let me show you in case you guys are doing this. Okay, so this is the manifold. Basically, you have to take off the brake booster hose. All right, the second thing you want to remove is a bolt here that connects like a bracket or like a handle that connects to the exhaust. I guess it's to stabilize this from moving. This is a 8mm, simple to get to. Basically there was a hose here that I forgot to disconnect, a vacuum hose, and then there's this one right here that goes into the valve cover. You want to just pop it out. I totally forgot about it. I yanked it. It looks fine. I didn't damage the hose or anything, but just remember to remove that. All right, guys, now it's time to remove the clutch fan. This part is extremely hard. If you don't have the specialty tools, you're gonna be at this for mad long. Basically, my idea was to basically wedge the serpentine belt tool down to the bolt and see if I can just hold it and give it some more tension to the belt. Then I'm gonna use like an adjustable wrench to basically break the nut free. Obviously, that didn't work. I tried wedging a screwdriver in between the pulley and the housing. That didn't work. Basically, what I'd end up doing, which I don't recommend it because it can damage the bearings on the water pump, but I had no choice, is to get an air tool and I basically hit the nut clockwise direction to loosen the nut, and it worked. Obviously, it damaged the nut on this side. If you could take a look at all the beating it took, but I got it out perfectly fine. All right, and in case you guys are wondering where I got the information, I got it right here on the manual. If you take a look at it right here, caution on 2.9 liter and 3.0 liter V6. The nut has a left hand thread. Turn the nut clockwise. And for the 4.0, that's a different story. But I'm just dealing with the 3.0. You want to turn it clockwise, and then we can go ahead and loosen this. All right, and it came loose. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove this plastic shroud as well. There's only 2 bolts. I think they're 10mm. All right, and then we can go ahead and remove the shroud and the clutch fan. They should come out together. All right, and then we're just gonna go ahead and put the serpentine tool back on here so we can take off the belt. All right, with the fan off and the shroud off and the belt, now we have enough room so we can go ahead and take out the AC compressor, the power steering, and the bracket. All right, now is a good time to take a look at your pulleys. Just spin them around, see if the bearings are bad. So far, the water pump is good. Now, the only one that's giving me issues is this one, which is the AC pulley, if you can hear it. The bearing is shot on this one, but I'm not gonna replace it just because the AC still works. They're gonna wait until the AC fails or until the bearing gets really bad. So far, everything else works. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna unbolt the AC and the power steering, put them to the side, then unbolt the bracket that connects to the head. All right, guys, update. So I went ahead and I unbolted the AC compressor and I put it to the side. I basically removed a bolt that was here that connects to the that connects this bracket to the head. There's another one down there. Once again, it connects the mounting bracket to the head. They need to remove. I think there's another bolt because it still ain't budging away from the head. So there's one more bolt somewhere I need to remove. The other thing I did, I went ahead and disconnected the cables for the fuel injectors. Now this cable right here, looks like the cable was rubbing against something because now the copper is exposed. So I need to buy another connector and splice some wires together. In case you guys are wondering, all the bolts for the AC compressor, the mounting, the mounting bracket bolts, the both ends, there were 13 millimeters. All right, guys, another update. So I went ahead and managed to get the fuel rails out with the injectors and managed to get the cables kind of, you know, organized here. I definitely need to pay attention on where all these vacuum hoses connects when I put everything back together. Now, as for the mounting bracket, there's 4 bolts you need to remove. I don't know why the manual told me to remove the AC compressor. I'm guessing it's so that it doesn't be too heavy when you align it back. But basically, there's a bolt right here, another one that connects below here, then another one down here, and then one over here, right there. So there's 4. Then you get like a big screwdriver and you kind of pry it out, and you see how there's a gap now. So basically I separate the mounting bracket to the head. All right, guys, I'm starting to loosen the bolts for the exhaust manifold. Now, honestly, this whole side right here, no matter what bolt it is always gonna be a 13 millimeter. The exhaust manifold has 1, 2, 3 on top and 3 bolts at the bottom. Now the last one down there, it looks like someone, I guess, replaced the exhaust manifold gasket before, because there's a bolt that snapped there. I snapped this one right here, but there's one down there that is already snapped. So I removed all of them, which is right there, besides one of them. Now, in case you guys are wondering how you're gonna get the one in the bottom, if you take a look over here on the front driver's side wheel well, if you take a look over here, there's your bolt right there. That's the one connected to the head. You want to go ahead and break that one free and remove it, and you should be good to go. Thank you, Ford, for doing that, because honestly, it'll be a bitch to get to, but it's right there. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and remove the valve cover now for both sides, and we're gonna go ahead and remove the rocker. Now, you definitely want to get yourself a box so you can put the push rods and the rockers exactly how you took them out. So when you put everything back together, it can go in the exact same order and you don't mix and match the parts. This is crucial because you can definitely damage your engine or damage a push rod or a rocker because they wear differently. So you definitely want to put them back in the exact same order you took them out of. Alright guys, so I went ahead and I removed both of the intake gaskets. I also removed the little plastic strip, a little gasket that goes from here and down there. I removed it. I tried to clean a little bit as I could. Not gonna go too crazy. Once I remove the head, then I can start cleaning all this oil buildup here. But so far the lifters looks fine. The intakes, inlets are fine as well. Not too much carbon buildup. So now I'm gonna go ahead and remove this head right here. There are bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts you have to remove. I'm just gonna follow the reverse Torx sequence just so I don't warp anything. I am replacing this head right here with a new one that has got resurfaced and machined and everything. So I don't have to go too careful with this. But just to keep everything the way it should, I'm just gonna unbolt it using the reverse Torx sequence method. As for this one, I still believe this head is bad. I'm thinking one of the valves are stuck open, so that's why I'm losing compression. So that's the reason why I'm replacing this head. Alright guys, so I went ahead and removed the head. Take a look at it. The cylinder looks pretty clean. There's a couple of carbon deposits on the surface of it, but nothing too bad. The walls themselves look fine. This is the gasket right here. Now I couldn't find any breakage on the gasket itself. The gasket looks pretty clean and intact. There's a mark right here, but that's because of me moving it and scraping it off. But so far there is no breakage, but there is this milky substance. Looks like the coolant and the oil mixed, but it doesn't look like there's any breakage. Maybe there's some kind of like hairline fracture somewhere that I'm not aware of, but the head gasket looks fine. The cylinder looks fine. All right, I don't think the cylinders or the piston rings or the head gasket is the cause of the low compression. I really think it's the head. And let me show you what kind of test I did to the head to see if it was the head. So I went ahead and filled up all 3 cylinders with the same amount of rubbing alcohol. If you took a look at the cylinder number 5, which is the middle right here, the alcohol is almost completely gone versus cylinder, I believe, is 6 and 4. 5 right here is almost completely gone. It looks like the rubbing alcohol is escaping from the intake valve. If you take a look at it right here, it looks like the alcohol is escaping from the intake valve. You can see that it's dripping versus the other 2. It still looks dry. This one looks a little wet too, but not that much. So yeah, so the cause of the low compression was the cylinder head. It's pretty awesome because the next thing I was thinking will be the piston rings. But I did a leak down test and the piston rings are perfectly fine. So yeah, the main issue was the cylinder head, which, as I mentioned, they are known for cracking. The valves are known for getting too worn out and not creating a tight seal. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace it. As for this side, I'm gonna leave it alone. When the time comes, I'm gonna get a new head and a new gasket. But as of right now, I'm just gonna deal with this side. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start cleaning the mating surface. I'm gonna remove all this old gasket material. I'm gonna use some brake cleaner. I'm gonna use some WD-40. I'm gonna use a flat razor blade. I'm just gonna go gently remove all the remaining head gasket material. I'm also gonna use some of this scrubbing pads here. You could definitely use this. Do not use any sandpaper. Do not use any weird scraping tool, because all it takes is a small scratch for you to damage the engine, and you're gonna have low compressions or leaks when you put everything back together. So you definitely don't want that. Just take your time with this. On the 4.0 on the Jeep, it took me about, I'll say 4 hours, 2 hours one night and then 2 hours in the morning to remove all the gasket, and I took my time. And to this day, the engine on that black Jeep is still running perfectly fine. So definitely take your time with this. I'm just gonna put the camera down, put you on time lapse. I'm just gonna go ahead and clean the surface. Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned the mating surface. I went ahead and sprayed some brake cleaner. I'm just gonna let it soak a little bit, and I should remove the rest of the gasket material. While that is soaking, I'm gonna go ahead and clean the intake manifold. Just gonna clean the mating surface again on this side and on top. Just get that prepped and ready to go. I still need to transfer the ground cable and this bracket that holds the wire harness. I need to transfer that to a new one, and that's basically it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and clean that up, get the new head out here, clean the surface, prep it, and get it ready to install in the vehicle. And of course, I got new gaskets for everything. I got a new head gasket, got a new gasket for the intake, for the upper, gaskets for all the thermostat housing and all that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just prep this stuff, get it ready. As for this, as for the rockers and push rods, I went and cleaned it. I'm gonna have to re-oil them and lubricate them, and so I can get them ready for the head. So that's basically where I am right now. Simple stuff. All right, now it's time to put the head gasket. I got the head gasket right here. For the driver's side, you want to make sure it says up front. This one right here says up front. Make sure this one goes here. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the package. You don't want to bend it. You don't want to scratch it. You want to be really careful with this head gasket because it is fragile. So I'm just gonna do that right now. All right, so I got the head gasket in. I made sure that all the holes, all the little channels has an opening. Everything looks perfect. And once again, in case you guys are wondering how the gasket goes, this one says front up is on the driver's side, so you know it's in the correct position. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the head. The head is right here. I already prepped it. I put the spark plugs, I put the ground cable, I put the wire harness bracket. I cleaned off any factory manufacturer coating that they put to make it rust resistant for the meantime as they shipped it. All right, now we should be able to put this on the car. Now keep in mind, you want to make sure this surface right here is free from any contaminants, any oil. Same thing with the engine. Make sure there's no oil, no contaminants, because the head gasket will go bad if you have oil or coolant on the head gasket. It will create a hot spot and it will crack and it will leak. So make sure both mating surface and the head gasket is nice and clean. We're gonna go ahead and put this on the vehicle now. Now the trick is, now as long as you put it nice and straight in the first time, you shouldn't have any issues. We got the head gasket in and we got the head installed. I made sure it went straight in. If you guys are doing it by yourself, well, I recommend get some bungee cords, probably put it inside the intake hole and kind of have like a second handle so you can lower it down perfectly straight down. Or you get a buddy and both of you lower it down at the same time. You want to make sure that the head goes straight in and it's not going to move around or shift, because that can definitely scratch up the head gasket, causing leaks or low compression. All right, with the head being installed, we're going to go ahead and install the new bolts. These are the new ones. We're going to go ahead and just lubricate them lightly with the oil, and then we're going to install them. I'm going to show you how to torque them down. There's a weird pattern to follow, so let's get started. All right, now it's time to fasten the head to the engine block. Now there's 5 steps we need to follow. Each step, make sure you're following the torque pattern so that the head can be evenly torqued down perfectly without any issues. So let's begin. Step number 1, you're going to torque down number 1 through 8 to 37 foot-pounds. Once you got bolt number 1 through 8 torqued down to 37 foot-pounds, you're going to loosen 1 full turn. Once you loosen 1 full turn, you're going to go back and torque down number 1 through 8 to 22 foot-pounds. Once you got it torqued down to 22 foot-pounds, You're going to get yourself a marker or some kind of highlighter or some kind of whiteout pen, and you're going to make a line on each bolt head from the middle to the 12 o'clock position. Do it to all of them, number 1 to number 8. Basically, this is going to help us indicate how far we turn. Alright, so once you got your line made on each bolt head, we're going to go ahead and torque down number 1 through 8, torque them down to 90 degrees. So you're going to torque them down from the 12 o'clock position. You're going to move the bolt head into the line reaches the 3 o'clock position. You're going to do that for number 1 through 8. Once you have all the lines facing the 3 o'clock position, we're going to go back to bolt number 1 through 8, and we're going to torque them down another 90 degrees. So that line that is facing 3 o'clock position should now be facing a 6 o'clock position. So basically you did a 90 degree turn and then another 90 degree turn. So basically that's all the steps on how to torque down the bolts on the engine head. Alright, after torquing them down, following the 3-step process, now we can go ahead and put the gasket for the intake manifold back on. Basically there's 2 of them, one goes here, and then there's 2 little, I'll say like, I don't know, rail gaskets that go on each end right there. Alright, so these are the 2 intake gaskets. Now, before we put the little rail gasket here, we need to put a little RTV on where the engine and the head meet, which is right here in the corner. So a little dab here, a little dab here, a little dab here, and a little dab here. You definitely want to do this because if not, you're going to have oil leaking. It's not going to be a lot, but it's going to be like a quart of oil every month. So you definitely want to use some red RTV. Just do that real quick. We need to quickly put this on and put the intake on before the RTV becomes solid. All right, and I'm gonna add a little bit of oil to the lifters just to pre-lube them so they don't run dry, because I know it takes a while for the oil to get up here. All right, and then we can load the head in. Just be very careful.
Ready. 1, 2, 3,
Just like that. Now, the way you can tell if this is a line, if this right here, this needs to be matching this for the valve cover. So just like that, it should be fine. The rest is on. Now we can go ahead and put the bolts on. As I mentioned, you have RTV that's trying to become solid. So you just want to hurry up, press this down so that the RTV can seal up. All right, to torque down the lower intake manifold mounting bolts is pretty simple. There's only 2 steps. First step, 1 through 8, go ahead and tighten them down to 132 inch-pounds. Make sure it's in inches. Once you've done that, go ahead and torque down 1 through 8 to 19 to 24 foot-pounds. And then you should be all set. Pretty simple, nothing to it. Alright, so we went ahead and we torqued down the lower intake manifold. Now we're going to go ahead and put the rockers and the push rods back in. Remember, you're going to have to put it exactly how you took it out. You cannot swap them from cylinder to cylinder. It has to go exactly the way you took it out. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Alright, now the torque specs for the rocker arm bolts. There's 2 steps for this one as well. Step number 1, you're going to torque them down to 60 to 132 inch-pounds. Then step number 2, you're going to torque them down to 18 to 26 foot-pounds. So I went ahead and I put the rockers with the push rods back in. I made sure that the push rods are hitting the lifter dead center, and I also made sure there was no debris. I went ahead and lubricated all the components, including the springs on this side since it's new. So everything is back together. In case you guys are wondering what the torque spec are for the bolts, basically you're gonna do 60 to 132 inch-pounds first. Then you're gonna go back and torque them to 19 to 24 foot-pounds. So that's basically what I did. I took my time. I personally have 3 different torque wrenches. One that measures in inch-pounds, another one that can measure from 20 foot-pounds to 80, and then a bigger one that can handle like 50 foot-pounds to like 200, 300 foot-pounds. All right, the next step is I'm gonna clean the valve cover for both sides. I'm gonna clean it really good and make sure that the gasket that is gonna go on here is gonna be nice and clean as well. And then we can put that back. I still need to connect the wire harness that connects to the bracket behind there. I still need to connect that. But that's basically where we're at right now. Alright, so I went ahead and I cleaned the valve cover. Take a look. Looks nice. I removed any old oil, any grease from it. It looks fine. Inside looks dry. I went ahead and put a new gasket all around it, and also put new O-rings on the bolts themselves. And we're gonna go ahead and install this in the vehicle now. Also, what I like about this gasket and this cover is that the gasket stays in place no matter what. It stays in place. And I don't know, I find that pretty awesome. Alright, so I got the 2 valve cover back on. Now I'm gonna go ahead and torque them down. Basically, the torque spec for these is gonna be between 84 and 108 inch-pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and torque them down to 90 inch-pounds. Alright, and I'm gonna use the exact same torque pattern as I did for the cylinder heads. All right, so the covers are all set now. I'm gonna start putting everything back together. I got the fuel rail already connected. I need to push the mounting bracket back to the head. I can put the 4 bolts back on. I still need to run all the wires and all the hoses. So now literally at this point it's just the reverse process of putting everything back together. So stay tuned. Update: before you put the AC back on its bracket, you want to go ahead and put this radiator hose back onto the sensor, and you want to put the clamp because there's no way for you to do it with the AC back into its position, because it's gonna this tube right here is gonna cover this axis right here. So you want to make sure you do that first. All right, so far I got that tube in. I went ahead and snaked this cable back out here. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can push this bracket closer to the head so I can get that bolt in and start lining up everything. Alright guys, quick update. So I managed to kind of put the wiring harness in both ends kind of neat, so I know exactly where they go. Basically you have a couple of these hose line. I guess I kind of moved it around too much. Now I don't know how to bend it back into position, but the important thing is that these plastic hoses, you want to definitely keep them away from the exhaust manifold because you're definitely going to melt them. All right, another thing is I kind of bent this this air hose too much. Now there's a hole there, which is fine. It just go to the vacuum storage down there. I'm just gonna go pick a pull for that. Another update is, so I got 2 of the bolts in, one there for the mounting bracket. Now the third one, it's kind of hard to see. If you get your phone and kind of go down, there it is right there. And then the 4th one will go right there, which is simple, right there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue putting everything back together, and I'll let you know if I stumble upon any other issues. All right guys, update. So the AC, the power steering pump, the mounting bracket, all the 4 bolts are all tightened and ready to go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fix this wire I mentioned that has like this exposed copper here. Let me see, right there. I'm gonna fix this next. I got a new connector right here, brand new from eBay. You can definitely go to a junkyard and just snap one off an old junk vehicle. But I just went on eBay and got a new one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and swap that so I make sure that's nice and secure. It's not gonna start any fires or not gonna short circuit. Give me a check engine light. After that, I should be ready to put the upper intake manifold back on all the bolts. And then after that, I need to connect all the coolant lines, coolant hoses, and put all the air hoses back where they came from, and then put the fan back. So I'm just gonna continue working on the car. I'll let you know if I stumble upon any other tips or issues. Alright guys, so I got all the wires connected. I got the gasket for the lower intake manifold on. I added some gasket sealant just to hold it in place. And I also put gasket sealant in another gasket for this EGR valve. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the intake. Alright guys, quick update. So this is what I have so far. I managed to connect the coolant hoses. I managed to connect all the wire harness back where it came from. Alright, now the only thing you want to focus on is these two connectors. They're both the same. The orange one connects out here. The gray one connects in there. You can't really mess that up if you honestly pay attention. All these cables, all these connectors go a certain way and they're a certain length, so you can't really mess that up. The thing I need to connect is the spark plug wires. I still need to do that, and the exhaust manifold, I still need to connect that down there. As for the vacuum lines, I connected everything. Just make sure that you take your time with the vacuum lines. You don't want to stretch them. You don't want to, if they're set and if they're bent to a 90-degree angle, you don't want to stretch it. Also, another thing that broke is the EGR valve pressure sensor right here. Basically the two little hoses, the little plastic hoses, they snapped because they were brittle. The plastic is still in there. I'm just gonna leave it like that for now until I go get the lines. Other than that, pretty simple. Everything goes back a certain way, so you can't really mess it up. The throttle body cables and stuff go a certain way, so you can't mess that up. So now I'm gonna go ahead and install the new serpentine belt onto the engine. And then I can get the clutch fan back on, the shroud back on. Once I get the exhaust manifold connected and spark plugs cables connected, then I should be ready to start her up. I still need to put the air duct back on and the filter. But honestly, I'm almost done. It honestly didn't take that long. I spent more time just on the vacuum lines themselves. The upper intake manifold was easy. I thought it was gonna be hard, kind of like balancing, you know, the gasket and all that. But what I definitely recommend, I recommend it again, get yourself some of this. This gasket sealant is awesome. It keeps the gasket in place. And no, it doesn't make the gasket hard. And no, it's not like super glue. It basically, all it does is just make a tacky side so the gasket stay in place. I do not recommend this on the head gasket at all. You're not supposed to use anything for the head gasket. Head gasket needs to be as clean as possible. But for the intake manifold gasket and even for the EGR valve gasket, you can definitely use that. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put the serpentine belt, get the exhaust manifold connected, and then we should be ready to get this car going. Alright guys, I made a quick stop at Pick and Pull and I went ahead and got the vacuum line I needed from this Ford Ranger right here. I'm still looking for the EGR valve pressure sensor unit, so I need to find a 3.0 somewhere in this junkyard. But at least I got my vacuum, and I'm probably gonna get some hardware too, just because the AC compressor is missing a bolt. All right, so I'm just gonna get the parts I need, and I'll be heading back to the garage. All right, I found the sensor I was looking for on this Ford Ranger right here. There we go. I'm just gonna go ahead and take it out. Hopefully it doesn't snap, and then I can go home and finish putting the engine back together. All right guys, I'm back at the garage. Just a recap. So I got everything connected besides the vacuum line that I snapped and the EGR pressure sensor that goes here. Other than that, everything else is connected. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fix the broken parts and then put the battery in. I already put oil and coolant, so that's all set. I also checked for leaks. There's no leaks whatsoever. Okay, so I'm just gonna fix the remaining issues, and then we can go and start her up, see if she cranks, see if she starts, and see if she idles perfect. All right, now everything is connected. Everything looks fine. Nothing is rubbing. None of the wires are on the exhaust manifold. Nothing looks out of place. So now, finally, I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. Hopefully it runs fine. Hopefully nothing harsh happens. And hopefully I did everything correctly. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. Even the black Jeep is in here waiting for me to start it up to see if it's gonna work or not. So wish me luck. All right, will she start? I'm gonna go ahead and put in the key in. Let's see what happens. All right, so I started up. She's running rough. It looks like I have a vacuum leak somewhere because I can hear it whistling. Don't mind the smoke. That's basically the WD-40, the coolant, the rubbing alcohol, the oil, all the weird stuff that I use to clean the engine bay. Basically, it's just burning up, evaporating. So I think I found the vacuum leak. If you take a look over here, looks like I forgot to plug in this. So it looks like I'm gonna go ahead and just plug it in. I really don't see anything else. I'm gonna go ahead and start it up again. All right, so it looks like the RPM is dropping slowly. So I'm thinking the computer is trying to calculate what's happening. I'm gonna go ahead and put more coolant so I don't overheat. If you take a look, it looks like it's idling perfectly fine now. I believe I have a small vacuum leak somewhere because I can still hear it hissing, but it's kind of hard to detect it because of the bad bearing on the AC compressor. But overall, it looks like it's running perfectly fine. I checked to see if there was any oil leaks, any coolant leaks. So far, it looks good. The engine's running fine. There's no harsh ticking. There's no lifter noise. There's no push rod slapping noise. It seems perfectly fine. Everything's working. There's no leaks. It sounds fine. All right guys, and there you go. This is how you change a head or head gasket on a 2001 Ford Ranger 3.0 liter Vulcan engine. Now this method also applies to like Ford Taurus and other vehicles that use the 3.0 liter. Pretty simple job. Everything is designed to go a certain way, which I love, so you can't really mess it up. And there's not that much hoses or that much vacuum lines you need to worry about. So everything came out nice and smooth. The vehicle ran nice and smooth. And everything seems like it's working perfectly fine. All right guys, so I'm gonna end the video here. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. See ya. Bye-bye. All right, guys, a side note, it's been about a week. I went ahead and took the Ranger out to multiple errands and multiple trips. The engine's running fine. As for the EGR pressure sensor, The one I got from Pinkapole is garbage, so I need to replace that. I just ordered a brand new one. So it's coming in the mail tomorrow. So far, engine's running fine. It idles a bit rough due to the stupid sensor that I got. But other than that, it's pretty good. I went ahead and took out the spark plugs and I ran a compression test just to make sure all my cylinders are good to go. And here are the results. Cylinder number 1, number 2, and number 4 is at 170. So cylinder number 5 and number 6 are the highest at 171 PSI. As for cylinder number 3 is the lowest one at 165. So this one I took multiple readings. I got 169 and 170. So far, that's pretty good. That's not too low. This could have been either a human error, but that's nothing to worry about. The engine is running strong for 200,000 miles. Honestly, when I took out the head, the cylinder wall seems in good shape. There was no scuff marks or anything unusual. Reading cylinder number 4, number 5, and number 6 being the highest in the compression test means that I did a good job. The cylinder head is good, and that the head gasket and the mating surface was done correctly. All right, I just wanted to add that note in case you guys are wondering what is the end result on this repair. All right, guys, bye-bye.